Welcome to another episode of the Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Our guest today is Gabriel Gaarden with another segment of Making Sense with Gabriel. Stick around, we'll be right back. Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm doing well, Nancy. How about you?
I am doing fantastic. We're opening
Good to
up.
hear.
Good news coming. Soon we'll be able to do nice vegan events outside or gather with other vegans. It's awesome.
Can't wait.
My question for you comes from one of our viewers, and it says, what is the main nutritional concerns associated with a vegan diet?
Awesome. Great question. It could be seen as a pretty big question, on the other hand, a small question. I guess it depends on how we look at it, how deep we want to dive. If we look at it on kind of a more of a superficial level, or maybe from like that 30,000 foot view looking down, just to kind of hit the main points, the biggest thing is always going to be vitamin B12. That's one that you either have to consume some fortified foods, fortified in B12, literally like 3 squares a day. So whether it's your plant-based milk, whether it's your nutritional yeast, whether it's your plant-based meats, again, you always have to read the nutrition facts label on the package to make sure that whatever you're consuming has nutritional yeast. Like if you're getting nutrition or has vitamin B12, sorry. And yes, it comes in nutritional yeast, but it may not come in all brands of nutritional yeast. So that's why we always have to read, the nutrition facts label and the ingredients. And so that being said, I always recommend, from the perspective of a registered dietitian, a nutrition professional, somebody who's really dug deep into all this stuff, I think the best way to make sure our B12 bases are covered is to consume a supplement. Some people are against supplements, but there's no reason to be against them. They're safe, they're effective. And so at least for B12, there's a few other things like vitamin D3. Again, that's not specific to a vegan diet. There's our omega-3s, our long chain omega-3 fatty acids like DHA and EPA, that some studies will show, especially in later stages of life for older adults, that we have more trouble converting the alpha-linolenic acid. That's one of the omega-3 precursors, essentially, that we get from things like walnuts and chia seeds and hemp seeds and flax seeds are going to be like our best sources in a plant-based diet of that alpha-linolenic acid that I talked about, which we abbreviate as ALA. So we got to consume ALA because it's so good for us, but our body will convert ALA into DHA and EPA. And those are super, super important. Those long chain omega-3 fatty acids for brain health, as well as for our cardiovascular health. And so it's so important that we get those in our diet. And if you can, of course, your body will convert it. But as an insurance policy, if people really want to make sure they've got all their bases covered, what I do personally, again, this isn't an absolute. An absolute on a vegan diet is vitamin B12. There's no questions asked there, full stop. We need to supplement it. And really, it's safe and it's cheap and it's effective to just get a supplement. You can supplement literally as infrequently as once per week of about 2,500, 3,000 micrograms, right? And some supplements you'll get about 2,500 or so micrograms in just one chewable, or some of them come in a spray that you can just spray underneath a sublingual pill or a chewable or a spray that you just spray in your mouth. Those are generally the best forms. I take kind of a multivitamin, more or less, that's called Complement. It was specifically formulated for people that are eating healthy, well-rounded, varied, whole food, plant-based vegan diets. And it's just meant to cover the bases in terms of the things that you might not get in abundance on a well-rounded, plant-based, vegan diet. And that's things like B12, vitamin D3, again, not specific to vegans. That's just something everybody, including omnivores, should be supplementing. It's got the DHA and the EPA, which again are potential issues, especially in older adults, because as we age, we may have more trouble converting the ALA that I talked about into the DHA and the EPA. And again, that's an algae-based, EPA and DHA. And then it's got a few other elements like iodine, which again, if you're eating your sea vegetables, right? So it could be dulse, it could be, kelp or some other things like that you're using in, or your seaweeds, your nori, things like that. If you're shaking those in and you're making that great no tuna salad that you have with chickpeas, and you use a little bit of those sea vegetables are a great source of iodine. But I don't always incorporate sea vegetables into my diet personally. And so I've got a little iodine in that complement supplement. It's got selenium. That's another one. You can get that though in a Brazil nut. Brazil nuts are so densely packed with selenium that if you eat them on a very regular basis, you could almost get too much selenium, right? That's an element that, again, most vitamins and minerals, some of the water soluble ones, it's not a problem because we'll just urinate out the extra. But some elements or some minerals, as well as especially the fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, if we're getting too much of those, that can be a problem because our body doesn't get rid of them as readily or easily as it does the water soluble vitamins. And so, but selenium you can get through Brazil nuts. But again, not everybody is going to concentrate on getting their sea vegetables for iodine, their Brazil nuts for selenium. And sometimes, depending on where we get our foods and where they were grown, right, depending on the quality of the soil, the amounts of these things will vary in terms of what we're getting for iodine or selenium in the foods that we're eating. And so that's why sometimes it's a good idea to get a good quality supplement or, a multi kind of vitamin that's going to have some different things in it to make sure our bases are covered and we've got that insurance policy. But if you're wise and you do different things, you can really get by and be super healthy and get everything that you're needing and only supplement B12. That's the one big thing that vegans have to be doing. There's good research to show that vegans suffer from higher stroke rates, and this is based on the EPIC Oxford study, which is a study of people in England, right? And they look at omnivores, they look at vegans, they look at vegetarians, because there's tens of thousands of people in this study that they've followed over time. It's a longitudinal study, meaning they follow people over time. They look at their diets and they look at other aspects of their lifestyle, and then they see, whether they get heart disease, whether they get cancer, whether they get stroke. And in this particular study, the vegans actually had a higher stroke rate. And that may seem crazy because generally speaking, eating more plant-based or eating vegan is protective for our cardiovascular health. And then therefore, we would think that we would suffer less heart attacks and less strokes. But stroke in particular, vegans can be at higher risk for stroke. And what the research appeared to show is that has to do with these lower B12 levels in vegans who are not supplementing with vitamin B12. So this is a big issue, people. We have increased risk for stroke in vegans, and that probably has something to do with our lower B12 statuses, but that only has the opportunity to be a problem for people who are long-term not supplementing. So if you supplement, your bases will be covered, and you can almost guarantee that you will instead be reaping all of the benefits of a vegan diet, which is lower saturated fat, lower cholesterol, right? Lower animal protein in and of itself can be deleterious for the health of our blood vessels, of our cardiovascular system. So you combine all of those benefits of a vegan diet with also getting our B12, which is important for our cardiovascular health, in addition to lowering things like saturated fat, cholesterol, animal protein, of course, our salt, because a high salt diet, again, that vegan or omnivore, any of us can be eating too much salt, is very, it injures our blood vessels, and it's bad for our cardiovascular health. And it's the number one risk factor for high blood pressure, which again is a leading risk factor for heart disease, stroke, and heart attack. So we got to bring our salt down. And there's a number of great ways to do that. We've probably talked about it in another podcast. If not, we can do an episode all about salt at some point, because it's a flavor most of us or all of us love, but we can use some good strategies to bring salt down in our diet, but still enjoy that salty, savory flavor that we love. So that being said, we want to get the B12, and then some of those other things, if we're being careful to get the selenium through Brazil nuts. Again, you only need like one a day or one or two every few days to get enough selenium in your diet, and getting your sea vegetables for iodine, and making sure you're getting enough ALA, which is through those things like the richest source is going to be flax seeds, but chia seeds are almost equally as great, as well as hemp seeds, walnuts, but any other kind of nut and seed is going to give you some good healthy fats in your diet. And of course your dark leafy greens, because even though they're so low in fat, they still have some of those kind of omega-3 precursors in them, those really healthy polyunsaturated fats that are really, beneficial for our cardiovascular health. So dark leafy greens are an essential part of a healthy diet. Okay. And, I think that pretty much covers our bases, but B12, we have to supplement with that. Vegans, go buy it. It's cheap. Get a sublingual, something that you put under your tongue, a chewable or a spray ideally, and that'll take care of itself. Thank you.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. I sprinkle that stuff everywhere. Anyway, thank you, Gabriel. It was fun talking to you again on this segment of Making Sense with Gabriel. Next time.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching another episode of The Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Remember to follow us on Facebook, check out our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Live vegan.